Welcome to episode 58 of the KRATOM Sobriety Podcast. I'm Charlie. I'm here with Jacob today. When this pod drops, it'll be April 28th and almost exactly a year ago when we had our first episode.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's almost exactly a year until I got off KRATOM too. Actually, the 30th is my date, I believe. So right around there. So I'm almost 1 year.
April 30th?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. The day of the podcast first dropping and your sobriety date are the same.
Cool. So this week we've got Meg on the podcast. She's got a bit of a history with substance abuse, and KRATOM is one substance that she happened to have a problem with, like many of us. She found it and was immediately like, this is the thing that's going to help me get through everything, as a lot of addicts do when they find KRATOM and they've been addicted to other things, because a lot of times people are told it's not addictive and all the things we've talked about many times on this podcast. We talk about a lot of things, but we did dive into mental health a little bit. Specifically, we talked a little bit about delusional thoughts and delusional thinking. And I had a similar experience, and I've read a bit about this and talked to some other people about it too. But towards the end, particularly when I was taking a lot of KRATOM, 4 extracts a day plus 30 or so grams on top of that, whatever that works out to, it's a lot, probably several ounces if you added it all up. It was just making my thinking super erratic, and I would start projects that I would never think of starting when I was sober, and I wouldn't finish them. I would constantly think about changing my career to things I was never even qualified for, but somehow I would be able to be the CEO of that company. Like all kinds of stuff, dark thoughts, suicidal thoughts at the end, just all kinds of shit. But the delusions, and I've never had that thinking on really any substance or naturally, so it was really a shock and a wake-up call to me.
We've had several guests that had similar experience. Just last week, Daniel, his KRATOM use really affected his judgment. I think you could tell from when he was sober, he could be a very clear-thinking fella. From my own personal experience, it did change my thinking. It changed the way I regulated my emotions, my feelings. Definitely, I was intemperate. I was quick to anger, and I felt manic at times with KRATOM. And normally I don't feel like that. I think I planned 3 different trips during my KRATOM run when I was using daily. I had really increased spending, which I've heard of some people in the chat rooms talking about the subject, about KRATOM's effects on people's psychiatric well-being.
I think it gets not as much attention, obviously, as the opiate withdrawals, because I think opiates have such a stigma, and that word even often creates a visceral response in people. But the mental health, I think, doesn't get as much attention. I was doing some reading about this earlier, and KRATOM is what some scientists might refer to as a dirty drug. And that doesn't mean it's like dirty in supply or dirty in effects. It's because it has a inconsistent effect in the amount of alkaloids in it and the amount of things they react to in your brain. Another kind of so-called dirty drug is MDMA, and that releases serotonin and dopamine and does a bunch of other different things. And that is a drug that's famous for mood imbalance as well. KRATOM does interact with your serotonin, your dopamine, obviously your opioid receptors. And I think continuous use of that, particularly at high doses, can definitely mess with your emotional state. And I know it did for me. My emotions were all over the place, particularly when I got up to using a lot of it. And like you said, my anger was very quick. I would find myself really angry at stupid things. And then it would literally, like, I'd snap out of it and I'd be like, what just happened? Like, how did I just get that mad? And I never do that normally. So yeah, it's definitely a strange experience.
There's some other alkaloids in KRATOM that don't get as much spotlight as the opioid-like effects, and many people report some SSRI effects. Where I really felt my mental well-being was when I quit. And during the withdrawals, that was unmatched to any other experience in my life, I think, where I was really depressed, not suicidal, but it was like into the world, doom attack that was unrelenting in long periods of time. And then even when I got through the acute withdrawals, the lethargy I had and the apathy I'm trying to find a 7-syllable word that I'm trying to come up with, but it was just never ending. Yeah. So it did feel a little bit like a roller coaster.
Roller coaster is a good way to explain it. Megan and I touched on this in her interview a little bit too, but I think for the seasoned addict, and what I mean by that is if you've been through any sort of physical dependence and withdrawal, you know what that's like. It sucks. It's hell. I would much rather go through that again than the mental part of Kratom. That was the worst for me. And this is specifically what we talked about. Meg had a few relapses, and that's what always did it. And that's what always did it for me too, was the mental part just dragging on and on. Because the physical, it's usually like a week or two, and then you're not great, but you're not terrible. But the mental just takes, I don't know, I'm scared. I don't want to scare the guests. I'm making it out to be this horror story. It's not, it sucks, but you can get through it. But it can linger. And it can be, just prepare yourself for some mental challenges.
This has definitely been a theme through many of our guests, and I'm sure some of our listeners are experiencing it too. So I do believe none of it is permanent damage. It depends on how old you are. If you're kindling, if you've been quitting multiple times, there might be some compounding issues there. If you have a lifelong polysubstance abuse problem, there might be some issues there. But in all, once you get off the Kratom, you'll feel a lot better. Usually within the first month, you'll feel remarkably better. And then give it 90 days, 6 months. I don't think there's going to be any permanent psychiatric problems unless you were at risk previously. If you had a baseline of a pre-existing mental health issues, it's going to get worse on Kratom likely. And you might have to deal with the aftermath of that. But being off the Kratom will likely do wonders for your mental health.
Yeah, I think it definitely will. And if you're a long-term person that struggled with substance abuse, and Kratom is just one of many things you've found yourself having problematic use with, then to be fair to Kratom, I don't like to do that, but just to honestly be fair, some of that may just be you adjusting to reality sober and the changes in your life you're making and dealing with some of the causes or some of the effects of your usage on your financial situation, relationships, family, things like that. And that can happen and can be something you have to deal with too.
I'm excited to listen to this interview with Meg. She was the first person that contacted us through the website, through the chat function. So it's come full circle and she's now on the podcast. And I'm just glad she's doing well. And thanks for interviewing her.
You're welcome. And yeah, let's get on to it. Welcome. Today I'm here with Meg. How are you doing this day today?
I'm good. I'm a little nervous. Really honored to be here. Definitely.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. Don't be too nervous. I can't jump through the screen and bite you, but I'll try not to freak you out in any way, shape, or form. We're really honored to have you too, and thank you for giving us some time to talk about your experience and
Yeah, absolutely.
share that with the listeners. So, how would you introduce yourself?
I'm 41. I'm a mom of a 10-year-old. I'm a theater artist. I was a kid actor and come from a theater background. Being an artist is really important to me. I'm Vermont resident. I love living here. I lived in New York for a really long time and really love being here. I'm a little woo, a seeker, and an introvert for sure, which is odd because I'm also in theater, so that kind of doesn't make sense. But
Theater art, I assume, is like the design of the visual aesthetics for a show, or is it like the playbill? Is it all of that?
I think it's just something like I think I've just taken on that name because I do so many things that I don't have one. So
I see so many different aspects of theater.
So I primarily direction. I'm a director, but I also teach and I help people write sometimes, and just I'll also mop the stage floor if that is necessary. So I'm just passionate about making stuff.
That's great. That sounds awesome. I try to go to some theater when I can. I have a we have a subscription to in Boston. I used to live there, but I go back quite frequently. But to have it's like a Harvard art thing where they do 4 shows a year that we usually get to go and see a couple. So that's cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I love Vermont too. Lots of good places to go there. I've been to a bunch of different towns for skiing and in the summertime. So
It's
really nice up
awesome.
there.
I was in New York for a very long time and finally moved to Vermont, and I can't believe I was in New York for so long. Yeah.
I get that. I
Yeah. I
live
need
in.
that space. I need that space.
So what do you like to do for fun outside of theater?
What do I like to do? I'm a yogi. I love to be outside. I'm an avid researcher. I love getting into a Wikipedia hole. I
Okay,
love, yeah, on the weirdest stuff. I love just time with my family, time with my son, time with my partner. Love film, love reading, all that stuff. Yeah.
great. Yeah, those are nice. All really good, healthy hobbies to have. Tell me a little bit about how you first encountered Kratom and how you ended up trying it for the first time.
Oh boy. So I got off alcohol in 2017 after I was sober for quite some time and moved to Vermont from Brooklyn and got a divorce in that time. Just a lot of changes. COVID happened, a lot of things happened, of course. And yeah, just my sobriety started my recovery started to slip. I got into a new really intense relationship that I wasn't ready for. And I started to just feel that pull of I want something to take the edge off, and was experiencing a lot of depression, a lot of lethargy, just a lot of just felt very low in retrospect, and got a job at a therapeutic school and was complaining about I had a couple of slips here and there. Embarrassingly, had gotten into a couple of people's medicine cabinet, but shrugged that off. It was just like 3 times, but didn't take that seriously. Normally, if I was in my active recovery, it would have been like, I need to talk to someone about that. But was just being a little bit reckless with how fragile I was, and was in a staff meeting and people were talking about kratom. And I think about this moment all the time. And I perked up, and this teacher who I really respected was like, oh, yeah, kratom is this amazing supplement and powder, and it does this and it does that. And it's really good for energy. Another thing that's a little bit different about my story is that I had an eating disorder for a very long time. I was a kid actor, and that wasn't helpful for that. So I was always looking for something to help me control that. So
Okay.
kratom was also sold with the idea of it helps with appetite, and that really perked my interest. And I was in the car to drive to New York, which is 30 minutes away, 25
Okay.
something. I should know by now. I've driven so many times immediately. And like right after the staff meeting, I was like, done, got to get something, and bought a bag of powder. Was really intrigued, tried it a couple times. I didn't really do much. And then I tried a larger dose
Okay.
of the powder, and I'll never forget like that feeling of, oh, this is going to solve everything.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
was off.
Off from there.
When that feeling descended, it was both elation of, oh, this is going to solve everything, and oh, I'm in trouble. And from there, I was doing it every day. I had it in a little jar underneath my sink. Didn't tell anyone that I was doing it, even the teachers who recommended it. And life got significantly better. I was more social. I think more than anything with kratom, like it made me feel at ease with people. And it definitely helped with the eating disorder stuff. Like that suddenly wasn't a problem anymore.
Okay.
It just was curbing my appetite and giving me lots of energy. And yeah, I was like, oh, this is clearly the answer to me. This is going to solve me.
Kratom's actually illegal in Vermont, isn't it?
Yes.
That's so
Yes,
yeah,
it
you had to
is.
go to a different state to get it. Okay, cool.
And we're right across the New York border. So I was driving to get it. At the end, I was driving constantly. It felt like I was driving every day. But yeah, the person who recommended it to me said, you can get it at the smoke shop in New York, which is right across the way. And I was like, done and done. I
Yeah,
always think
it's
about
right
how
there.
like quickly I got in the car and like this feeling of life's going to change. I don't know how, but I think about that moment constantly. What if I didn't go to that staff meeting? What if that teacher didn't arrive on that exact conversation? What would my life be like? Because it took over.
So two questions. Other than the problem with alcohol and that, did you have any other history of substance abuse or anything like that?
Yeah, with alcohol came cocaine. I
Okay.
always say I'm grateful to Coke because it like rapidly accelerated my alcohol addiction because I couldn't really do one without the other at the end. And that
Okay.
was a giant bummer and was had such a cost. That's the other thing about
Yeah.
Kratom. Like you do a night of drinking and have a couple lines and it's a real consequence. And
Yes.
what was so appealing about Kratom is it's like this free pass. Oh, it doesn't
Okay.
have a hangover. It doesn't have a, until it really does. But
Yeah.
at first it was like, this is amazing. But I think what I realized in having a couple slips, just like taking pills, which I'd always done in my teenage years, but I really liked opiates, and opiates have an effect on me where it's an upper for me. I
Okay.
will take an opiate and be ready to socialize or ready to clean the house. It like just makes me feel like a normal person. That's what's hard to
Yeah.
explain.
No, I totally understand what you mean. I have the same experience where it acts as that social
Yeah.
lubricant for me, and the same with pills back in the day and all that shit.
Yeah.
And it can really allow you to be social and productive and stuff like that. So so you tried it for the first time, you get that, or the second time you get that, oh, okay, this is the feeling that I want in my life. How did it progress or how did your usage progression go from there to when you knew that maybe it was a problem and ultimately to where you are now?
Oh boy. So what happened was that it just started to wreck my stomach. So I was teaching and feeling ill all the time, running to the bathroom to gag. So I decided, and I was drinking it. And so I thought, I need a pill because if I can just swallow something, I won't have to deal with the taste of this.
Okay,
And
so you were using the plant material at first
right,
and mixing it up and drink.
yeah. And then I started to hit up the OPMSs,
Oh
the
yeah,
the
the
capsules. And that was
okay.
the game changer. I took one right before a class and was like in slow motion, like a movie when people take the Quaaludes or something.
Okay,
like
yeah. The
like
first time I tried
like, oh,
yeah.
this is a whole other ball game.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. It was the first one that was like I was like legit. This is like Percocet or something. It was real.
it was very real. And then once I had a taste of that, there was no going back to the powder.
Okay.
So it went from, and again, it was the same feeling of, oh, this has solved my life 2.0. Like these capsules are so much easier, so much more expensive. And that didn't really hit me until it really hit me. But I just was so eager to find a solution for how sick the powder was making me. So the capsules just felt a lot easier. I didn't
Okay.
have to deal with the mess of it and everything. But yeah, so I was doing like, it went from a half a pill a day quickly, like within a week, it was just a pill in the morning. And then it was a pill in the morning, a pill in the afternoon, did that for a couple of weeks. And then the most that I did the first round was 3 a day. And
Okay.
that lasted for I'm trying to think of the time because I don't know if you have this experience, the whole kratom succubus.
Yeah, I
Like
have that experience.
it
One day you wake up and 3 years of your life has gone by and you don't know where the hell it
right.
went.
And that was definitely my experience. And about 2 months of that, of the 3 pills a day, and something was changing. It was turning.
Okay.
And it was becoming really obvious that I was addicted to it and I was lying. I was going off to New York for random things and yeah, it quickly turned actually, but I kept going for a very long time
Yeah, me
after it
too.
had turned.
Me too.
Yeah.
I remember it distinctly no longer working, and I knew I was just taking a day out of being
Right.
sick, but I just, for a long time, just kept going and going.
Yeah.
All right, so you get up to the 3 extract pills a day, and at that point, what did you do? Did you try to quit cold turkey first? Or how did you approach it?
So there were a couple days where I was like, this is a problem. I think I'll stop.
Okay.
And tried that like hilarious idea
Yeah, I
because I
did that too.
stopped and was just like, I cannot do life like this. The depression that came in was shocking. I think because I was so naive about how hooked I was and just thought, I'll go off of it. And then was just like, it couldn't function. And that happened a couple of times. And I just said, oh, I'll just have to keep doing this then. But I wasn't in full, this is a problem until I think probably 6 months after use is when I started to flirt with the idea of I'm going to have to quit one day.
Okay.
And that was a
Yeah.
really scary feeling.
The depression part is something I experienced too. And I think a lot of times when people are getting ready to quit this, they focus on like the acute detox, which can
Right.
be a couple days to a week or two. And that does suck. But I think if you're a seasoned person that's been through some drug withdrawals or alcohol withdrawals, that's something you're used to. I guess is the way to put it. But the depression that comes after that is its whole own like hell that doesn't get enough attention from
I
my perspective.
I couldn't agree with you more. I wouldn't wish like that was the darkest of my whole life.
Okay.
That feeling of being like, oh, I'm now feeling everything that I haven't been feeling for the past 6 months, but 100 times stronger. And there's
Yeah.
no way I'm going to be able to, what was scary was just like that feeling of there's just no way that I'm going to be able to live like this.
I also wonder if that for people like you and I that have had a history of drugs and alcohol and know like recovery, and then we've made it to this substance, and it was like supposed to be the one that was not addictive and could be the answer. I think maybe that makes it all the worse because it's like the long line of stuff you've done, and maybe this is the end.
I think that's really astute. I think that's exactly it. Because there was such an elation of, oh, I'm fixed. This is the way
Yes. Yeah.
antidepressant should work. Like, this
Yeah.
is the
Exactly.
magic. And I wasn't elated or speedy or coming across like I had done too much of something that was feeling euphoric. It just felt like a really
Yeah.
steady, oh, I can do life.
Yeah.
And
It's like a
yeah, when that was
functional
taken away,
drug. It doesn't get you like blacked out like alcohol or opiates do necessarily. It doesn't get you like you said speedy or up to like amphetamines or coke would, but it's just weird.
it
Anyway,
is.
all right, so you quit, you get the depression. How did your quit go? Did you quit once and that was it, or did you have
No,
okay.
oh no. And again, there's the thread of this untreated eating disorder. So
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
telling me not only do I have to continue to use kratom because I'm addicted to it and the depression that comes after is horrid, but if I stop it, then I'm going to be in the other hell of my eating disorder. And I really did want to talk about that because I haven't heard a lot of
Yeah.
people address it, but like the way that it can curb an appetite for someone who struggles with an eating disorder is also outrageously dangerous, and then it backfires pretty hardcore. So there was the threat of, if I let go of this, I'm going to put on all this weight.
Okay.
And so
So for
that
you,
really helped. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
for
It
you, it
really,
really was like a weight suppressant. That's
it
interesting.
totally was. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I know other people have a different experience, but maybe it was just because I was so nauseous all the time. But for someone who's a restrictor like me, it was like this. I don't have to be white knuckling my restriction. It comes so easily. It
Okay.
also came with terrible nausea, and I was probably so sick all the time that, which is depressing because it just shows the pain that I will be in to keep the addiction going and also keep the restriction going. So it was definitely a double whammy there. So yeah,
Okay. Okay.
I quit. I told my partner, because I don't know if you had this, like the pain of keeping it from people and going, oh, this is feeling a lot like when I was hiding alcohol in a drawer
Yes.
and in the
Exactly.
car.
Yeah.
Like that
Shame and that guilt and all those
totally.
feelings. Yeah.
Like it went from, this is my little secret that makes everyone like me more because I'm way more social, to it being like, oh, this is my secret that when people find out, they're
Yeah.
going to realize what a liar and addict I am. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. I felt the same way and did the same thing. And it's a
um,
lot.
what got me, it was really showing up in my work. So I was directing and I could feel I didn't have access to the thing that helps me like work on my feet. I could feel like my mind was just not there. And that was really painful. It's so painful to like be able to rely on something and then not have it available anymore. And really embarrassing because I'd have all eyes on me and just be unable to get through a thought. That
Yeah.
was also a thing with Kratom.
I know exactly how you mean there too, because I like in my career I do software technology type things, and I had a really good year like when I first started using it, and then or not first started, but when I was still able to be addicted to it and justify it, and then
Right.
eventually it got to the point where it was really impacting my ability to focus, and I was sick every morning, and just to get to a point where I was functional took hours and
Yeah.
wasn't working.
Totally. So I told my partner and I organized like a quit. I didn't do the stuff. I didn't get into the internet. I didn't find the podcast yet. I
Okay.
didn't really even, when I look back at that first quit, it was just really naive. I just went through withdrawals and sat on a 24-hour AA meeting. I did not
Okay.
have the support that I needed. So I quit for, I want to say 3 weeks. And then, yeah, and then the itch came. I had no tools for dealing with
For
that and
dealing
was
with it,
just
yeah.
driving back, doing the commute again the moment that the addiction told me to. And then that began. So then I was on it for another 6 months, had another quit, started doing a play. That particular stretch was really hard because I was working hard and I was just in that kind of zombie robot kratom space where you
Yeah.
take a look at your eyes and they're like, I
Yeah,
had
I
a
know what you mean.
hard time looking at myself in the mirror. Wow, you are out of it right now.
Yeah, I had like the gray skin and
Yeah.
it was just you look like you said like the zombie-ish.
It's yeah. And also at first it made it easier for me to be with people,
Mhm.
and I'm so socially awkward that I was so relieved to really enjoy socializing. Even just when I say that, I just mean at work. It made that kind of
Yeah, I know what
better.
you mean. Like it was easy for me to be willing to stay for a happy hour even though I don't drink or
Right.
to do stuff like that versus just wanting to get out of there
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah. But then it became clear that that there was something wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that what's embarrassing now is that I thought I was getting away with it. And to all to people being led by me and in my life, they were like, you had the zombie eyed, white knuckled, I don't know, strangeness that we couldn't put our finger on.
Yeah, I think there's something to that too. I think regardless of if it's this substance or other substances, a lot of times people will say, "Oh, you hear this a lot. Oh, I'm a functional alcoholic or
Right.
functional this or that." And it's maybe, but you don't really know until you take a step back, and then people are like, "Oh yeah, you're much different now," or "Yeah, I can tell your performance is better now because you're actually present." And it's a difference
Right.
that you can't really tell until you're actually you and you're not blinded and numbed out by all those things.
Totally.
Okay.
So, and then I tried to get off, I believe last September, I found the podcast. I found
Okay.
Charlie. I I got onto the Signal group. I just really threw my weight behind, this is a huge problem. I have to tell everyone in my life, and I have to get off of this. And I did the first true blue, like serious withdrawal.
Okay.
And that was one of the scariest experiences I've had.
Let's talk about it. How did it go? Did you use anything to help you with getting through the withdrawal, or did you
I
just?
I sure did. I went to my doctor, and
Okay.
I told her everything that was going on, and she gave me, gosh, I can't remember, something that slows your heart rate down, that slows your
It's like Clondine or something
yes,
like that. Yeah, yeah.
that was a disaster for me.
Okay.
Actually, it created more of a problem. Yeah, but I had all my supplements and
Yep.
knew where I was headed. And yeah, the first 2 days were awful. No sleep, that feeling in my chest of anxiety, like I was falling into a pit,
Yeah.
and
Just no
just a
relief at
feeling of,
all.
I just don't know. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But
Okay.
then on the third day, I had a day where I was like, I'm doing better,
Yep.
and went to pick up my son, and had finally got him home. But that evening I had what would be considered like a psychotic break,
Oh,
where my whole body was trembling. Noises were so loud. It felt like it was happening inside my brain. I couldn't walk downstairs. I was dripping sweat in a like ball on the ground. It was
yeah, I've
I'm
been
a
there.
I'm a pretty dramatic person, but actually my partner, who's very logical, was like, that was terrifying. That was a
Yeah.
terrifying thing to watch. Luckily my son was kept away, but it was bad, and I woke up from that like never again. And then of course and then of
Oh, I've
course
done that so many times. Oh, geez.
Ay, Dios. So I was really excited about getting past that.
Okay.
I was taking on my sobriety. I was going to meetings,
Okay, good.
then had a really big personal breakdown with my partner.
Okay.
I think that more than anything, I'm definitely an addict, but I think I'm really a codependent more than anything.
Okay.
I think all
Yeah.
the addiction is just numbing that, and had a really big problem. And from there, so I was about 2 months clean, and I I just buckled under the crisis, and it was such a huge crisis that I just thought, there is no way I'm going to be able to get through this without Kratom.
Okay.
And that kind of, it was that moment of, I'm in panic and I need my thing. And of course, the moment it got into my system, I was just right back where I had started.
Yeah. There's no like when you relapse, you're gonna be like, okay, now today I'm gonna just take one. When
Right.
I was taking five, it's no, you're gonna maybe take one, and then by lunchtime you'll be like, I can have another, and then the next
Absolutely.
day you're right back where you left off. There's no skipping, and then it doesn't even work. Like the time that it, for me at least, I would quit, and then I'd go a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and start again. And then the first couple of days it would actually like work, but then I was just taking it because I knew that if I stopped, I'd have to go through withdrawals again, and I didn't want to do that.
Totally. And I think the other thing about Kratom that's weird is that I would get some pills, all the same, like all the blacks.
Yep.
Some batches were awesome. And then some
Some
batches I
weren't.
didn't
Yeah.
feel anything. The highs were different. I love that. Like that to me is, ooh, what's it going to be like what's it going to be like this time? And then that dangling carrot that I tell myself of, oh, I just need a good batch. And then I'll get back to where I was.
Yeah.
All of those maddening things I do as an addict of convincing myself to keep the thing going when the thing's going down. But so that led me, so I relapsed back in October.
Okay.
And then from October to February, which was my last quit date,
Oh, okay. Good.
that was the worst. That was the worst it ever was. And
All right.
that was a time where I was like really thinking, I think this is just going to take me out. I can't foresee how I'm going to be able to quit this. And I can't foresee how I'm going to be able to continue going.
Yeah, that's how I felt the time when I finally quit. About it's almost a year now, but that's when I went to the doctor and got help because I was like, I can't do this again. Like I'm either gonna have to do this forever, which is gonna make me kill myself, or I don't know, this stuff's just gonna kill me at some point.
Yeah.
I just didn't see any other way. So that final quit, did you also go cold turkey? Did you taper? Did you have anything to help? What would you decide to do to finally stop?
Interesting, and it has a lot to do with the Kratom Sobriety podcast, because I was gearing up, I was ginning myself up for a taper and looking into that and knowing in my heart, like, you get addicted to Tic Tacs. So this is not, but I'm really good at lying to myself. So I think it was more of, I wanted it to keep going and I didn't want to say goodbye. I respect so much people who are able to taper, and I know that's worked out for a lot of people, and I think that's incredible. It's just interesting that there was a little voice in my head going, you're not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And I was listening, and I was like, I think 3 days away from starting the taper. I'd cut down a little bit. From three pills to 2 pills of the OPMS. And I was listening to the Kratom Sobriety podcast to Nick G's, which I think is with you.
Yes, I did talk to Nick.
I was listening to that.
I talked to 2 Nicks, actually. Nick U and Nick G, I think.
It was Nick G.
Okay.
And I was listening to that podcast, and like something in me, I think it was the line, how much more time do you want to waste? Like, it hit my chest like a again, I know I'm dramatic, but this was something, because my partner came in and I was just like sobbing, and I said, I'm going cold turkey. I'm going cold turkey tomorrow.
Awesome.
And I did. I sure did. I just was like, now's the time. There was a feeling of, you have a little bit of insight. You've just been moved by this person who's saying like really wise stuff and telling your story. And there's this door that's cracked, and go for it. That was the voice. And I just was so tired of being tired at that point, and so tired of fighting.
Yeah.
And also had this, my mind was going, like, that's the other thing about Kratom. It's as if I was given a mysterious other mental illness. And I've dealt with depression and anxiety and other stuff my whole life, but this felt more like paranoia and just more of a feeling of really losing it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I jumped on that feeling and went for it.
Just let that help you with, finally getting through the end and saying enough is enough.
Yeah.
I hear you on that. I read an article this week, or it was a study maybe, about delusional thinking in like Kratom usage, and I keep hearing more and more about that, so I think that there's maybe something there and some commonality. What do you think was different about this last time? Was it just like you said, that you felt like it was just, you were just so done that you just had enough, and what are you doing to make sure you don't get back to that place?
Oh yeah, I went all in. I went all in with getting involved in the Kratom community.
Okay.
I went all in with reaching out to people, with just setting up what withdrawal was going to look like and what I would need to do to get sober in a completely different way.
Okay.
That involved like therapy, like a real sense of let's get to the problem here. There's
Yeah.
clearly a big problem, and I think there was more of like the researcher in me, or almost like the detective in me, was helping me get to a place of you need to heal. It's not going to just be white knuckling this time. It's you
Okay.
have to do this differently.
Yeah.
And that mentality just really was helpful. And I was also again, I don't know what happened in that moment, but I got excited with the idea you don't have to live like this anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's interesting how the things we gravitate to that can help get us through those dark moments. How did the first 30 days of your last kind of quit go?
oh, yeah, it was rough. It was that it wasn't as rough as the psychotic break
Yeah.
one. It was rough in a different way because it was like it was more I was so surrendered, and just the panic of what am I going to have as a crutch, and the anxiety was out of control. But then that was the first 4 days. Then I
Yeah.
just jumped into I gotta figure out how to just get up and do stuff. So that was cold showers and breathing exercise,
Yeah.
and just I was at a point of such surrender, like I will do anything,
Yeah.
whatever it takes. I do not care how silly it is. I am such an addict that I need to completely turn into somebody else was almost my
Yeah.
tactic.
I've done that twice. I did it like with booze and other drugs, just to get to the point where whatever I've tried to do clearly is not going to work. So
Right.
someone else just you tell me what to do.
Right.
I've given up on what I'm going to try because I know it's probably not going to work. And I got the
Right.
same way with this when I had my final relapse and I went to see a doctor and get treatment and was like, I just can't. You tell me what to do.
Right.
I'll do whatever you say because
Right.
clearly what I'm doing is wrong.
And I have to say, and the podcast, like I would listen, I would walk and listen. I don't know how you did it without yourself, without you guys, just
I
because.
did actually. I didn't join until the 13th episode, or after the when I was on. I think it was the 13th one. So I was sober by then, but I did listen to it a lot in early sobriety, and it was super helpful, which is one of the
Oh,
reasons why I reached out and got involved.
yeah, there were days where I also like I heard someone say sometimes when you're getting sober, you have to treat yourself like you're like pregnant, which I
Okay.
have been, so that just this is you get to nap, you get to luckily I wasn't
Yes.
working at the time, you get to cry when you need to, you get to just lay on the ground and feel.
Have some grace to just get through it and don't worry
Ah,
about all the other
right.
stuff because it'll be there when you're ready for it.
Totally. And then just got into really launched into therapy. And I have a lot of unresolved trauma and just wanted to bury that away and not get to it. So there was definitely a feeling of I've got to look at stuff in a different way.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a pretty expensive recovery program with meetings and getting ingrained in the kratom recovery community as well as therapy.
Very.
Therapy's a big one. I I did that. I started doing that when I quit alcohol for the first time, and I let it lapse during the pandemic, which is one of the reasons I think why my kratom usage got to where it ultimately got to. I think it would have got there anyways, but I think I probably maybe could have reined it in a little bit better if I was talking to somebody, and getting back involved in it has been helpful this time around because there's some unresolved things in my history that I've had to go through too, and that work is hard, but I don't know how you do it when you're still using because you can't really get to it's easy to walk out of a session and just
Right.
not think about it again and just
I do want to say I got sober my quit was in February, and
February.
then
Yep.
March 5th I had a slip. I had a 2-day slip. Again, being a codependent, I got involved in a social situation involving my family that I was not prepared for.
Okay.
And just really a lot of hubris. I'll be fine. It'll be fine. And the moment I walked in the door, I was like, oh shit, this is not going to be fine.
Yeah.
And found hydrocodone and took one, and then the next day went and got some OPMF shots. Took one. By the grace of I don't know what, it felt awful.
Okay.
I thought it was going to feel great because I've had so much time off, and
Yeah.
luckily it didn't. And I was just, we're not going back to this. And for some magical reason, I just was able to flush it. And again, like, out myself to everyone. That really
Yeah.
works for me. Or if I have a backdoor exit, I will take it. I have to come clean as quickly as possible. So I got on the meeting and I announced what happened and just got really honest. And that just works for me. It's just, I always think it's going to be the worst thing in the world. And it's just, you're met with so much understanding.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't slip, but I ended up buying like a bottle of alcohol at one point, and I remember I was about to throw everything down the drain, and I just was like, I can't do this, and I
Right.
got rid of it. But I immediately went to a meeting and told I do smart recovery, and I was just
Oh,
talking
cool.
talking to the group about it, and I was like, met with so much humility and great job. I can't believe you were able to do that, and it was actually a positive experience versus what it would have been a disaster.
Totally.
And that's cool that you were able to recognize immediately and not go deep into it and have to go through the withdrawals and all that crap again.
And that's just some weird fluke. That's some odd, I don't know what that was, because I know myself, I would have been, if I had decided, nah, let's give it another shot, it would be another 8 months of me using.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you, besides the meetings, the breath work, all the things you're involved in, is there anything else that you think you need to do to make sure you don't slip up again? And
Oh, I think for me, I think it's just like through and through honesty and that codependency stuff, like I have such a social anxiety that I use kratom to combat that. I will really get myself worked up around having to be with other
yeah,
human beings. I think it's just a matter of really getting the tools in place to know that I don't have to provide or be anything for anyone, and really working on that as a step, because I have such habits around needing to take care of people or try and get in people's heads. That's where my addiction voice gets really activated. So looking at like all the other stuff that gets me to using has
okay.
been so important. And then having a relationship with a therapist where I'm accountable for talking it out with them about that.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all really positive, good things to help with
Yeah.
staying on in recovery and staying accountable for sure. So what's your life like today now that you're kratom free, and how are things now?
Life is still life,
Yep.
but oh my gosh, I'm getting to a point where I will take anything that's real over just the misery of that. I call it controlled misery, because that's
Okay,
what
that's a good way to
that's
put it.
like
Yeah.
it. I loved being in control as a person with a childhood that was very out of control. Like, it wasn't so much about like the euphoria. It was about, I knew what to expect.
Yeah.
And surrendering to life is totally unpredictable, and I'll be up, I'll be down, I'll be all of the things, but it's a real human experience and not this synthetic hellhole that being on kratom was. So life today is messy and way funner. Like, my sense of humor, I don't have to force laughter anymore, which was getting exhausting.
Yeah.
The way that I have so many more interests. I'm easily like moved by things. maybe it's a little bit more difficult to socialize, but the connection is so much realer. And then my work has just been so much more accessible. And that to me is to not have my mind and my artistic lifeline available, and to now feel how much stuff has changed from me not being on Kratom. It's just been the best. That's been really great.
Yeah, life comes at you in every way, shape, or form when you're not totally numbed out from Kratom, for sure. And
And
there's
accepting that.
yeah, once you accept it and can just embrace it, it can be really liberating. It can also be a little scary too, but
Oh,
that's just how life is. Right?
without a doubt. That has taken this time. At first it was just terrifying. And sometimes I
Yeah.
have days where it's just, this sucks.
Yep.
Where's my shortcut? Where's my something that's going to make being human a little bit easier? And that playing the tape forward of all of the times I've done so much writing about the hell that I was in with Kratom, and that's really helpful for me.
Yeah.
Because I can always go, and when I think I want to do that, and just be reminded, like, oh, this was the worst.
Yeah, I have a lot of journaling about it and about other addiction things, and I can sometimes, if you go read those back, you're like, nope, no, not
And
one, don't want to do that. Don't want to do that.
And I took video of
Okay.
myself, which I highly recommend, withdrawing. Granted, it's like excruciating to look at.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
But I think Charlie recommended that. But whoa, that's
Okay.
a nice thing to have in your back pocket if you have the strength to
do
give
it.
that
Yeah.
a play.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because it's, oh wow, this was what it was, and I can't convince myself it was anything else.
Yeah, there's no way you can not, because you're there. It's your video. There's no unless
Right.
it's a deep fake or something,
Right.
which would be odd. What would be your kind of top tip for someone that's getting ready to quit Kratom?
Oh man, you can't, you can do it. I know everyone says this. It was so concrete to me that I couldn't do it. Like, it just felt so unimaginable. Like the idea of winning the lottery. It really felt like that. And that you really truly can. And it might suck, but nothing sucks as much as being a prisoner to that drug. And if you are wanting to quit, follow that want. Sometimes it's fleeting, sometimes it comes and goes, but that's a really wise voice that keeps saying, let's try this again. Let's try this again. And yeah, just know that it's going to be hard, but it's going to be so much better.
Okay. Yeah. That's really well put. We talked about this in the intro in a recent episode, but there's this big fear about quitting, and a lot of the conversation you hear is about, or you're going to get a lot of the parts that are the detox is hard, it was rough, and it is, but that's only a limited amount of time, and it will end. And the torture of being in that self-imposed prison is going to be a lot worse than any withdrawal you're ever going to experience, whether that's kratom or hard opiates or other things. I've done them, and then they suck. They're much better than that prison of using and waking up feeling like crap every morning. It's more torture than it's worth.
And I also think the other thing I'd say is just be super. I think I think as addicts, we use because we are in pain. And if I could have been kinder to myself, I definitely would advocate for people who are thinking about quitting or who are in that struggle. Just, there's nothing wrong with you. You found a solution for something, and now it's not working anymore. And I definitely needed to hear that, because I will beat myself up all day and all night. And there was a certain point where I got a little bit gentler, and that definitely changed things a bit.
Yeah. Addiction it's a mental health disease that's usually manifestation of another sort of trauma or disease, or it can be, at least, and it usually is for a lot of people. There's other reasons why people get addicted too, but it can happen to anybody. There's like this stereotype, I think, that people have, that you have to be homeless and living on the streets,
Right.
but that's what an addict is, and it's everybody. It's people that are making billions of dollars a year and people that are making $5 an hour. It
Right.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It affects everybody in all walks of life. So you just have to give yourself some grace and
Yeah.
realize you have a problem and you need help sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a quote, "I would rather be ruined than change." That
Yeah.
that
Yeah, that's
really
true.
that hit me pretty hard because I was at that point where it's I would rather keep doing this and being in this desperate space than actually change the habit and move into the unknown because that's what being sober is. It's a wild ride. It's actually way more of an adventure than the consistency of addiction. I know what that looks like.
It definitely is. That really hits home, particularly probably more so for me with alcohol than
Yeah.
kratom, just because I think like everybody drinks. So you're the one that always has to say no, I don't, no thanks, or then someone's always inevitably going to ask you like a question, and then usually nowadays a lot of people don't drink for health reasons, so it's a little bit easier. But that was always the terrifying thing for me is like, oh, I'm gonna have to be the one at the party that says no, I don't drink, and be like
I have to
everybody,
have
be
that
different than everybody else, and it's like,
totally.
but
And I get angry too, just like you're
yeah.
having fun because you know what
Yeah.
it's like over here to not have that lubricant. It's awful.
Yeah.
And everybody's having a great time and loose and looking at you. What's the matter? I think getting myself out of situations like that, like situations where I know where I'm going to be triggered, are a no for me right now.
Yeah, and that's how it was for me too for a while. Now, for a long time, at least with alcohol, I've been at the point where I know that I'm not missing out on anything, and
Mm.
I'll just feel like crap tomorrow, and I won't even really enjoy myself much
Right.
tonight because I can't just have a drink and talk to you. I'm gonna have 20 and
Oh, totally.
make an ass out of myself. So that's the way that it would go.
Same,
Um,
it's the same.
so all right, just to switch it up a little bit. So, since you are into the theater and you mentioned you like movies, what's your favorite film? And
Oh boy, my favorite film. Actually, the film, have you seen The Sound of Metal?
I don't think I have actually.
Oh, dude. So The
Okay.
Sound of Metal is about an addict who's in recovery in the beginning of the film. I'm not going to say much, but it
Okay.
is the recovery film for me. I can't even think about it without getting emotional. And I had the album cover or the dude's face on my phone
All right.
because
Wow.
I needed that image of if you forget you're an addict, oh, nope. All you have to do is look at the phone. And I can't really say much about it because I don't want to give it away, but it's really such a beautiful, detailed experience about what we go through and also
All right.
very uplifting and beautifully acted and
I'm gonna have
directed.
to
My
check
God.
that out for
And it's
sure.
about a metal drummer.
Okay.
And I don't know much about metal. My ex-husband used to be really into it, but that doesn't matter at all. And by the end of it, I wanted to know everything about metal. So
All right.
that's
Yeah, I
also
don't know
good.
much about metal either, but that sounds cool. I'll
Yeah.
have to check it out. All right, before we wrap up, is there a question that I didn't ask you or anything you want to make sure we discuss for the audience before we wrap up today?
Yeah.
Or if you have any
No,
questions for
I
me
think
too.
this was great.
Okay.
So did you just reach out to Charlie and say, I want to, I'm curious about how
Yeah,
you
so
started
we
interviewing.
so we had this conversation and interview like we're doing now, and then when we wrap up, we usually stop recording and we'll talk for a minute or two. And we thought we had a really good conversation, had quite a bit in common. And I was like, oh, the podcast has been really helpful. I've been sober for a few weeks now, and I heard one of the guests was in dedicated assisted treatment and all these other things and
Mm,
like stuff that isn't necessarily well talked about on the internet. There was nowhere else to really go at the time, and I was like, I would, if you want any help, I'd be more than happy to help. And he's actually, I could use some help. And yeah, we took it from there. And then we had Krista involved, who got involved a little bit before I did, and then she ended up needing to pull back for some personal reasons. And
mm,
Decima, it's been a good experience. It's good because we have 3 people, so we can split up the
yeah.
interviews and the intros and the resource of the week and the KRATOM in the headline segment. So it makes it a bit so it's not a huge workload. But
I'm deeply inspired. I want to do, I think I don't know, doing something that is taking the knowledge that you have and your story and the pain that you've been through and making it accessible for other people, I just think is beyond cool.
Yeah, it's been really rewarding in that aspect. And then there's the selfish aspect, which is it also, if I have a craving on a Wednesday to like, oh, today sucks and I'm just gonna go stop what I'm doing and I could just go get high or whatever. I know that if I do that, then I have to tell Charlie and Decima that I relapsed, and then I got to
I
figure
know.
out what I'm going to do with the podcast. And it would just be a nightmare. So it's also helpful with that selfish.
Totally.
So, yeah, but it's the first part. It is very rewarding to get to help people, and even if it's just one person, I think.
Yeah, there's like
really
a lack of pretense with you guys. It's just so straight. I don't know. I like that it doesn't have like bells and whistles, and there's so many podcasts that are all about like selling something or being all jazzed up or making it cute or something like that. And this just feels so true and clean and just, I don't know. I love that.
Yeah, we're three recovering addicts that both have full lives. Charlie and Decima have kids and are busy. I've got a family of my own, and I don't have kids, but I have a wife and other things going on. So it's just a side thing. We don't make any money or anything like that.
So rad.
We are looking for sponsors. No, I'm just kidding. You always say maybe we should get like Suboxone or a drug maker to sponsor us. If you're listening and you wanna get out on some money, let us know. But no, it's simple because we don't have a lot of time or money to make it fancy. But I think that helps with keeping it authentic.
Yeah, and it's showing that important part of recovery, which I need, which is just like being in touch with other addicts, hearing their stories and trying to do something.
Yeah, and the service aspect.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I think with that, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Meg, for joining us and coming on and telling your story. I think it'll be helpful for others. And yeah, let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is awesome.
KRATOM in the headlines. This is going to be a brief one this week. This is an audio clip from a local TV station in Kentucky where a new KRATOM law was passed.
A new law in Kentucky requires that people be 21 to buy it and that dosing information be printed on the bottle. Local 6's Dylan Payne's been looking into this. Dylan, what else should people know about KRATOM?
Jen, you should know that it's not FDA approved and remains on the DEA's watch list. Also, it's incredibly addictive. In low doses, it acts like a stimulant, and in large doses, it acts like an opioid. Someone that I talked to today was consuming 5 to 6 of these every single day, which have 4 doses in every bottle, and was spending about $150 every single day on his addiction.
I go pop a few of these, and I end up under the bridge.
What is the suggested, recommended, safe, healthy starting dose of KRATOM?
You cannot overdose on KRATOM. Your body will reject it. You'll start throwing up.
We've all seen videos like that, but what if it wasn't true?
In too high doses, it could even potentially cause death.
Dr. Laurie Ballou is a clinical psychiatrist who treats patients who are addicted to KRATOM. Marketed as a dietary supplement that can treat pain, depression, and even insomnia, it acts like an opioid. Kyle Maxwell has been in recovery from KRATOM and is now 8 months clean. He got off KRATOM for a while, but relapsed.
Like a heroin horror story. I took that amount I would normally take, so I got out of jail and I drank 2 bottles and I passed out and I woke up, God knows how long later, but I'd cracked my head and but I didn't know it could kill me, no.
He says being clean now is like a new kind of freedom.
Just being off KRATOM is one thing, but working a program and being at the place I've been at, a dramatic difference. I never thought that I would be able to handle situations the way I'm able to handle them today.
And I played this mostly this week because it has some good sound, good reminder of the risks that KRATOM can pose for some of us. This is a general warning that sometimes the local news gets it wrong. They don't have a big department where they can do a lot of deep dive research on kratom. Sometimes they get the details wrong. I didn't play this, but they got some of the facts wrong about respiratory depression and the use of Narcan and kratom. Saying kratom is a heroin nightmare is sensational. But the gist of it is true. And you shouldn't just dismiss it outright just because they got some of the facts wrong. And that's Kratom in the headlines this week. And until next week, keep it kratom free.
Hey, you guys, Decima here with this week's resource of the week. And this week, the resource is you, us, everybody in this amazing kratom recovery community. See, I remember when the Quitting Kratom Facebook groups were just starting to form and the Reddit was just starting to grow. People were realizing that they were not alone in the experiences that they were having when it came to their struggles with their kratom use. Once upon a time, it was even more taboo than it currently is to speak negatively about kratom in any way or on any forum. But it was really hard to connect with others that were going through what we were going through. Talking about the downside of kratom can still bring out the advocates and opposition, but not nearly to the extent that it did in the early West of kratom slithering its way into mainstream society and making its use socially acceptable. At that time, we were a very small group of fish in a large sea of sharks. Since then, the groups have not only been growing tremendously, but they're multiplying all over social media and the internet everywhere. Seeing our meetings go from 3 to 4 people just sitting around shooting the shit on Google Meets about their woes with kratom to multiple meetings a week that are highly structured in such a way as to allot for everybody's precious time, that's been bittersweet. It's bitter because I hate why we've all come together, but sweet because I'm so grateful we have. We are not alone. And the community that has been born from the aftermath of dealing with this insidious bullshit plant is unlike any I've ever been a part of. No kidding. We are literally saving each other's lives and we've become family to one another. We show up to these meetings and these forums night after night, day after day. We're forming bonds by holding one another accountable, supporting each other in our darkest times and most helpless moments. We become invested in one another. When we notice that you stop showing up, it hurts. We understand and know exactly why you've stopped showing up. We've all been there. We've all felt the shame of feeling like we've let ourselves down and everybody else down. Relapse is a part of recovery. It's easier to slink into the comfort of our using and hide away from those that we know are going to hold us accountable and care about our well-being. It really sucks when I get close to some of you and then you disappear on me. I worry like crazy and my heart aches for you. I know exactly what you are going through. I've felt it. We all have. We've all been there. Again, this is my plea to you to please, please keep showing up. Even if you relapse, we don't care. I can almost guarantee you that every single one of us is going to understand. Nobody is going to judge you. And if they do, we're going to throw hands because I've got your back. We all do.